Hey folks, how's it going? I just wanted to give my 2 cents about this continued discussion around the IGN review of Mouse PI. There's a lot of talk about that review specifically, how reviews get written, the purpose of reviews, the idea of objective good and bad, subjectivity and criticism. Who is a review for? Who writes these things? What is the goal of someone who writes these things? And then what is IGN's role in, or someone like IGN, the PC gamers and the GameSpots and those things, of the world? How do they shape it? What is the purpose of a video game review? How has that changed over time? And then, is this a controversy? Is this a nothing burger? Um, I have a lot of thoughts about this because a lot of the people, frankly, talking about it, places like YouTube and Twitch are full of worthwhile perspectives that you should be listening to and enjoying, obviously, for your gaming coverage. But most of the loudest voices discovering this or discussing this whole mouse PI, thing with IGN, they have never written for those kinds of outlets or reviewed games professionally outside of their own content creation bubble, which is fine, but it can lead to a lot of parroting one another's opinions, repeating the same sort of misinformation, and people without hands-on experience in the journalism space, can sometimes talk out of their ass. They don't know what they're talking about, and again, that's fine. That's not their fault. But it can hurt people. It can poison the discussion. Um, you know, I promise you that the people who make decisions about whether a website has review scores and how like it's scored from 1 to 10 or from 1 to 100 or from 5 stars, 4 stars. The people having those conversations behind the scenes, if they had their way, review scores would not exist. Okay. It's a vestigial tradition. Okay. You walk into a church and you see a stained glass window of the Virgin Mary, the window, and you see certain kinds of candles, or you see people eating those communion wafers or whatever at a funeral. Ask those people why they do this. Well, they've done it for thousands of years. They've done it for hundreds of years. It is a vestige of basically ancient rituals, right? Like it is tradition. It's something that is done, and you do it because everybody knows that you do it. Okay, review scores are frankly like that, and there's all kinds of like ongoing ripple effects throughout the business, the industry of games. You got Metacritic, you've got OpenCritic, you've got these huge publishers giving out bonuses and any kind of like incentives that are tied to specific review scores that puts a certain kind of weight behind these things that is not just institutionalized, but it creeps out into other corners of the video game space, and it becomes more important than the prose text of the review. And that is a problem. And everybody who works professionally within the games journalism space, they all pretty much agree that that's a problem. And you know, it gets a lot of clicks, it gets a lot of social media engagement, it gets a lot of talk like what we're doing now because that's what everybody's talking about this still. It gets a lot of shares. People like Troy Baker, share the review, share the discussions about the review. Oh my God, 6 out of 10. First of all, 6 out of 10 is the equivalent of a 3-star film review out of 5. That's the same fraction. And if RogerEbert.com or Variety or Rolling Stone or whoever gives like a 3-star out of 5-star review to a film or an album, do you think that's a controversy in those industries? Probably not, unless it's like Beyonce or Taylor Swift. No, it is not a controversy because no one gives a shit how many stars a critic gives in a review for an album or a film, because those industries have grown up and people understand nuance. And first of all, a big important point to this whole thing: institutions and individuals are not at all the same. When you talk about, so and so with the byline on a review, and then you sort of conflate that person with that's IGN talking, that's GameSpot talking, that's Variety talking, that's Polygon or PC Gamer talking. No, that is not true. That has never been true. Um, Quite often, the people writing those reviews are freelancers or contractors. Maybe they work for like a copy agency that sort of does work with somebody like IGN or whoever. Most of the time, those are like some 32-year-old person with like a kid at home and like they play games all the time and they're like an award-winning writer or a professional writer and they review games and movies and albums and stuff almost for fun, but also for freelance income. They do it for the love of the game. Okay. So, like, I've done reviews, news, cover stories, long form reported features, listicles, op eds, all kinds of stuff about video games, pop culture, Star Wars, the horror genre, hardware, laptops, gaming laptops, all kinds of different products, TV shows. I've reviewed them for places like IGN, RogerEbert.com, the official Star Wars website, Polygon, PC Gamer, USA Today, Variety, Rolling Stone, you name it. I've written for all those places for about 10 years. Um, and basically, the process of working with editors as a freelance writer, um, often the stuff that gets the most clicks and attention, like for instance, Will Borger's Mouse PI review at IGN, and then Torn to Shreds, like that is probably not like the most significant portion of Will's income for that month. It's like something that helps your bona fides. It is You're doing criticism because you care about the medium and you love the art form of video games and you want them to be better and you want to understand them better. You want other people to think critically about them, understand the medium and how all these different, narrative design and art direction and sound design and music and voiceover and writing and code and game engines, how all these things work together as kind of a symphony creating this authored experience or sandbox for the player. Okay, like whether they're telling a story, whether it's like a survival sandbox or a multiplayer experience, they just want to make you understand how all those things work and tell, what is their individual authentic experience of the art themselves. You contemplate, what did this game mean to me personally as the writer, as an individual, as one person, not as IGN, not as PC Gamer, not as RogerEbert.com. How did this work? How did it not work for you? And then you just tell the truth. And it's a review is one guy's opinion, one person's opinion. And headlines, social copy, probably even the review score itself are often tweaked or changed or done from scratch by people other than the writer. Often the editor or editors will discuss it with the reviewer and try to, reflect the writer's opinion. But all these people, there's the freelancer who's the writer who they turn in their draft and maybe they're very precious and protective over their writing and they want it to be represented, well. But once you turn in something that is essentially a work for hire contract piece of writing for a big publisher like IGN, Rolling Stone, whoever, NPR, whatever the case may be, GameSpot, those people are in the clickbait business. They are in the SEO business, the Google business, the internet traffic business, social media engagement. And, things happen, but, likely the review score is an attempt at reflecting the writer's opinion overall, the overall experience described in the review. Um, and if you're talking about overhauling the 1 to 10 review score system in something like IGN or anywhere, you're missing the point a little bit because really all those sites, all those editors in charge of choosing those review scores, if they could do exactly what they want tomorrow, they would just excise that whole system and throw out review scores and stars entirely. Most of them. There are exceptions. I think that people like Matt Zoller sites, like some of those like old fashioned sort of movie critics and TV critics who are still around doing incredible work for, sites like Ebert and Vulture and, New York Mag and New York Times. Like some of them I think still vibe with the idea of like 1 to 5 stars or 0 to 5 stars because there is a utility there. Okay. But for the most part, like it's it drowns out the discussion of the actual meat of the review, the writing, the actual, and that's just it's a shame because, one person's opinion, it doesn't have to match up with everybody else. Their consensus is a lie. Objectivity in games and reviews is a lie. Um, that doesn't exist. Roger Ebert, he wrote about films in the first person. He said, I went to the movie, I interviewed Werner Herzog, and I wrote about this film, and this is what I experienced. This is what I saw. This is how I related to it. And when you're talking about games reviews, that's really what it should be. And um, the games media business has a long history, and you look back, 25 years ago, I was picking up Official Xbox Magazine, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and magazines like that in the print days, the print golden age. They would often have sections at the back of the magazine, where you could flip through, and like Official Xbox Magazine, they would have every major Xbox game release that they had ever played and reviewed, which is like all the Xbox games, because the original Xbox only had so many games, right? So like I don't know how many, but basically you could flip through and you could see, oh, like 9.5 to Splinter Cell, or what, or 9.8 for Halo, or whatever the case may be. I don't remember exactly what the scores were, but you could see like, oh, these are the real standout titles just at a glance, like Halo, Splinter Cell, Knights of the Old Republic, Morrowind. Ooh, those are probably the games I should check out. And that was like, there's a practicality there. There's a sort of working Joe, sensibility behind them. Electronic Gaming Monthly, I think you could flip through and maybe see like how many stars or whatever things evolve over time. And again, just like I was using the church metaphor, things evolve over time, but institutions become very traditional and set in their ways, and they have a ripple effect. And if you look at like Game Informer magazine right now, they're back. They've got another print edition. It's a wonderful print magazine. I subscribe myself, and like they still have little capsule reviews. So like it's a pretty small magazine that's put together at a rapid, cadence. So they sort of fill it with like reported features and previews and like the kinds of things that people want to sit down and read with their morning coffee. Okay. But you flip toward the back and you will see like a huge list of like capsule sized like paragraphs, or like just a couple few sentences of a review of like all the games that they've played, covered. Maybe they like put the full review on their website, but then they just put like a little capsule review summary. You could call it a summary or a blurb in the print magazine. And so that's sort of a vestigial reflection of the old days where you could flip to the back of EGM or OXM and see 9.8 to Chaos Theory, that kind of thing. Halo 2, Halo 3. um and bottom line, I think people need to chill out about this stuff. Okay. And like if you don't like one critic at IGN, you read Will's review, or some Dan or Travis or any of the guys at like a given, or women or anybody, non-binary folks, any of the critics at any of these outlets, you read them, and like you're really not vibing with their opinion on something, their love of a particular genre, or their lack of affinity for a particular genre, or the way that they approach games, narrative. Maybe you like the more video gamey bits and they're obsessed with the narrative. I'm a guy who, when I review a game, I'm really heavy on the narrative, okay, because I'm a writer. I came from the fiction world. I grew up writing stories and drawing little pictures and like watching a million movies, and like I'm forever the guy who cares about the story and like how does a video game translate a story and make me experience the full vision of that story through performance and writing and player choice and agency, all that stuff. Like, um, another writer critic might care a lot more about the art style and like really hate pixel art or really love pixel art, or like they really hate roguelike elements or they really love roguelike elements. Like, you name it, every critic is different, okay? You talk to 20 of your friends, and if they talk about a particular game, they all talk about it the same way and have the same opinion on it, and they all agree. One of two things is true. Either they're being way too polite about their opinion and not being honest, or B, they're just saying what they've heard and they're just repeating what somebody on YouTube told them to say about it, or they're kind of like they're scrolling through social media, TikTok, Twitter, whatever the case may be, and they're like absorbing these sort of sound bites and headlines and social copy and clickbait essentially. And like that becomes their review of whatever particular piece of art. Maybe they didn't play the game themselves, maybe they played it for an hour, maybe they played it for 10 minutes. The point is like it's okay to not have an opinion on everything. It's okay to wait until you've played the game yourself. Or it's okay to trust a particular critic that you like. But if you hate one critic or you hate one critic's particular review on a game like Mouse PI or whatever the game may be, you know, insert game here. Uh, if you hate a review, that doesn't mean that the outlet is equivalent to that review, that score. A review score is so meaningless, damn near meaningless. But like the point is like one person is likely not an employee of IGN or GameSpot or PC Gamer or any of those websites. That is one freelancer who played the game, got paid to write about it, and then they went on with their life. And here you are getting so angry, so pissed off about one review, one opinion, instead of, here's an option. You can go play the game, you can go discuss it, and you can make a YouTube video. You can go write a review on, publish it on medium.com, publish it on your, well, you pay for X, you pay for Twitter. And so you got like blog post functionality. God help you if that's you. But if you do, you know, post your review anywhere, post, make a video, do a review on TikTok, whatever your thing is, share your experience of the game, talk about how you felt playing it. That's fine. It is okay to disagree. It is okay to not conform to consensus. And that's what a good critic is often going to do, because they're going to be authentic and honest and tell the truth, because the truth is not objectively game bad, objectively game good. To hell with all that. That's not real. That's bullshit. That will never be the case. And a review is always, I played the game, I felt this, I thought about it, I wrote about it and tried to communicate and tried to share some of my knowledge or experience and try to connect with the reader and help them think about it. A review is really a vehicle for thought, discussion, perspective, you know, um, yeah, you got to chill out about game reviews and just think about it. They're not that important. They are not how a website makes money. They are just something to get people talking about games. And if you're angry about games all the time, get back to the games that you love and talk about those. I don't know, but um yeah, it's not a crime to dislike a game that you played for review and found lacking in some way. And again, a 6 out of 10, that's a pretty good score actually. That's a movie that gets 3 stars out of 5. That's a good movie. I mean, think about how you use Letterboxd. If you rank a film 3 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd, you probably thought it was pretty good. So why get mad at a reviewer? But yeah, hey, thanks so much for listening. And I I'm an open book. I'm very honest. I've been a professional games journalist off and on for 10 years. I've worked for most of these sites, and I'm happy to share how they kind of work behind the scenes, and hopefully you've gotten a glimpse of that here. But the point is like one writer is not the entire outlet. They are not a monolith. Um, and institutions like IGN, yeah, they have their own baggage and their own history and their own house style, but that's not a reflection of one writer. So thanks so much, folks. Have a good one.